You double dipped the cocktail version.
Well, this was probably being served at a key party, okay? So
Right.
they were sharing more than their dinner. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shine. Oh, hey, it's you. It's Adam Ragusia. You're about to watch a free episode of my new podcast, Wholesome, that I make with my friends. It's a patrons-only show. You can get it for as little as $5 a month, and the link is in the description, but this particular episode is free. Hope you enjoy it. Big question for you. Did photographs in the 1970s really look like that? Or are we just like looking at papers and inks and such that have aged for 40 or 50 years before they were digitized? Is it yellowing that we are seeing, or did photographs just really have warm colors back then? Think of all the 1970s magazine ads where you see a handsome mustachioed man laying out by the fire, as I happen to be now. Chest hair bursting like a fungal infection out of the petroleum-based fiber disco shirt he's advertising, and which he most definitely ought not be wearing near open flame. A shot like that from a magazine in 1976 always has excessively warm colors. And what do we mean by that? Well, if you've ever wanted basic optical science explained to you by a lifetime radio guy, woo boy, get excited. Differences in color are caused by the subtle differences in wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation within the visible spectrum. So, electromagnetic radiation that's coming at your eye in waves between 400 and 700 nanometers long, that's what we call light. A nanometer being a billionth of a meter. EM waves of 400 to 700 nanometers, we developed organs to perceive those, and we call those organs eyes. Why do our eyes see those waves and not the longer or shorter ones? Probably because the waves emitted by our sun and filtered through our sky are generally most abundant in that visible range. Wavelengths shorter than that we call UV, X-rays, gamma rays. Longer than that we call infrared, which is given off by hot bodies, such as mine and yours. And then there's microwaves, which we use to make bodies hot. Hopefully not mine or yours. And then even longer wavelengths than that we call radio. Thank God I'm back in my wheelhouse. Radio wavelengths can be hundreds of meters long, which is why they're able to wrap around buildings and mountains, which is why you're able to pick up a radio transmission without direct line of sight to the source, as opposed to light, which you do have to be within the line of sight to see. That's why we call it the line of sight and not the line of farts or whatever. I suppose farts can wrap around buildings too. Anyway, weirdly yellow 1970s color photographs. They look warm. What do visual thinkers, of which I am not one, what do visual thinkers like photographers and designers and such, what do they mean when they say that colors are warm? Well, generally, they mean that the wavelengths between about 750 and 570 nanometers, those are the warm ones. Those are the longer wavelengths. You go to the shorter ones, you move into green and then blue and then violet, and then ultraviolet is just out of our visual spectrum, but that doesn't mean you don't still have to wear sunscreen. Anyway, green and blue are generally considered to be the cool colors. Why do we consider the longer wavelengths to be warm and the shorter wavelengths to be cool? It doesn't make any sense. Shorter wavelengths means higher frequency. Higher frequency necessarily means higher energy. The cool colors are higher energy light reflections or light emissions. That seems backward, right? You would think that we would call the higher energy light the warmer color, right? Because heat is a form of energy. And yet, we refer to the lower energy light wavelengths as being warm and the higher energy ones as being cool. What gives? Short answer, no one knows, but my best guess is that it has to do with the color of objects that humans frequently experience in their daily life. Blue is the color of the sky and ice and the ocean. And Even in the tropics, we generally think of the ocean or water in general as a cooling force, because as warm as like beach water may be, it's probably still cooler than our fiery mammalian body temperatures. Human bodies, when they die, when you die, you go cold. And what happens to your skin? It turns blue. It's not that the blue made your dead body cold. This is simply an incidental association, but one that looms in the human mind for sure. I'm not sure how much we really think of green as being cool. It's simply on the way between the cool colors and the warm colors of yellow, orange, and red that we very naturally associate with the sun and with fire. The two main sources of external heat for humans for most of our existence. Of course, if you ever played with fire, I certainly like to, you know that the coolest fire is actually red. As fires get hotter, they go to orange, to yellow, to white, to blue. Blue flame is the cooler color in our minds, and yet it is the hotter flame. Red is the coolest flame. And when your fire isn't even hot enough to give you visible flames, it's still emitting EM waves a little longer than red, just out of our visual spectrum. And what do we call those? Infrared. The waves you know because they are given off by hot bodies like yours, you sexy beast, you. All this is to say, the true color of decline and death and entropy and the inevitable spinning down of the universe is the warm colors. The cool colors are the color of concentrated energy, intense heat, like that generated by the explosive chest hair of our aforementioned polyester disco shirt model. Maybe the photo was even hotter back in 1976, because the color temperature might have been cooler, because the paper and ink weren't old, but then they aged, and they yellowed as they do, and declined into those lower energy warm colors. I'm sure physical media aging is a big part of why 70s photos all look yellow to us, but that's not the whole story. Film companies radically changed their approach to what they did in the 1970s. The Kodak company, in the earlier days of color film, formulated their film stock based upon the image of a model that they had in-house named Shirley Page. And Shirley Page was a porcelain-skinned young lady. They formulated their film to give the best reproduction of Shirley Page's pale white face. And as a result, consciously or not, they effectively favored the accurate and intense reproduction of the cooler colors rather than the warmer colors. Hence, why lots of old color photographs from the 50s and 60s do not look super yellow to us today, despite their physical media also having aged. In the early 70s, chocolate manufacturers and wood furniture manufacturers complained to Kodak that all of their products were coming out looking the same in their ad photos shot on Kodak film. Dark brown and light brown came out exactly the same on Kodak film. And you can imagine what that same phenomenon did to the human faces of non-white people who were continuing to assert their civil rights in the 1970s. Kodak went back in the lab and developed new film that captures the warm colors as well as the cool ones. And I suspect, I'm not at all sure, but I suspect this is one reason why so many 70s photos look so darn yellow. And where have we seen this phenomenon more ignominiously preserved than in the food photographs from the 1970s? Back when Twitter was Twitter, which is a sentence that carries both literal and figurative meaning, one of my favorite follows on what was formerly known as Twitter was @70s_party, an account run by a British woman named Anna Pillai, a lovely British publishing industry professional who has been vegetarian since age 12, she says. Anna Pillai, Pallai. She just got really into these infamously disgusting 70s cookbook and homemaking magazine photos of dishes like infected-looking hot dog dicks with Jell-O. Probably not what they actually called it in the 70s, but that's what I'm going with. 70s Dinner Party is no longer active on what remains of Twitter, nor am I, for reasons that should be obvious. But the photos are still preserved in Anna Pillai's book, 70s Dinner Party, still available at fine bookstores once you buy it, and once you buy a book, no billionaire can buy it back out from underneath you if you don't want them to. Anyway, I just want to now gab about some of my favorite 70s dinner party recipe photos with my friends. And I reckon that's going to be as wholesome as infected hot dog dick aspic with maraschino cherries and canned pineapple slices on top. Bring your cottage cheese, girl. Let's put the two together by the fire. I haven't shaved.
This is Wholesome, an introductory photography class at the local rec center, and also a show about sharing the things that we like with our friends. I'm Adam Pranica.
I'm Adam Ragusia.
I'm Ben Harrison, and however many nanometers you've got, that's plenty. I think that's plenty.
Well, it's what you broadcast on them, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about very yellow photos, and this picture happens to be sitting on my desk right in front of me, and I think that's a 90s photograph, but it looks very 70s in its color, and I wonder if that was self-conscious.
You want to describe the photo you held up for our audio listeners?
Sure. I mean, we're doing this one on video, but I've got.
If you can peer through the boob window on Adam Ragusia's YouTube channel, where this episode will also live, you will see.
Yes. We've got Lursa and/or Betor. I am embarrassed to say I don't remember which is which.
They don't all look alike, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, but they're sisters. They do look alike.
Yes, it's true.
That's
yeah,
Lursa.
and anyways, I feel like Klingon ship takes some aesthetic cues from those 70s tones, and Klingon food in Star Trek, notably ass-looking in the way that 70s food photography often is.
Good call. Well, let's see if we can find the roots of Klingon food. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. In the original Roddenberry, it's Klingon. And in these photos. So I'm just going to chat these to you guys. Hopefully you can see them.
Okay, what we've got here first is what looks like a loaf of white bread that has had the inside scooped out. What's interesting about filling a loaf of bread while scooping out the middle is this doesn't look like it was cut from the middle and scooped. It was cut, like the heel was cut off of a whole loaf. The inside was scooped out and replaced with what looks like a corn and pepper pate. And then you got some cucumber slices on top. What are we looking at here, Goose?
Wow. Well, so the thing about 70s Dinner Party is that it's stuff that she's been able to find from numerous sources, and she doesn't always have the provenance, right? Mm-hmm. And so for most of these, we don't have the provenance. That's okay, because I'd rather invent my own provenance anyway. So, I don't know. What can we name this?
So this photo doesn't have a name of the dish?
It does not.
It's just a photo?
I think that we should name it.
Huh.
Mush Wellington, you could call it. Like, the thing about the way the color is represented here is that the wrinkles in the outside of the loaf of white bread that has been hollowed out look fleshy, you know?
Yeah.
It almost looks like decaying meat on the outside and on the inside.
Is that exacerbated by whatever the hell is in the background? Is that like dried fish in the background?
It looks like fish, which I think suggests that what's inside the loaf is also fish.
Wow, good call.
So this is like a tuna salad log.
That looks like smoked fish to me. That looks like smoked whitefish or something.
There's a density to a fish salad that, I mean, I'm thinking about the tensile strength of this bread. How does it not just burst and crack? It seems very difficult to fill while not breaking the bread.
Because it's also bread with a very tight crumb structure, which implies that there wasn't like a shitload of gluten development in the creation of this loaf.
It's just a Wonder Bread, right? It's a Wonder Bread loaf, right?
Which is almost like a whipped product, as I understand it.
I would eat this. I love a tuna fish salad, and it looks like this one's got some stuff in it, like some corn and some peppers, or maybe some peas.
Yeah, and maybe some cheese, something. There's little white flecks in there.
Oh, the white. No, the white's got a.
That looks like potato.
Potato.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right. I think the main matrix is like pureed smoked whitefish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we've got like peppers and corn kernels and potato chunks and peas mixed in there. And then it is like, the photo suggests that you serve it by slicing it into a thin slice, where you have, just imagine a slice of Wonder Bread, except in the center you have the pate that we just described. Pranica, how would you try to, where would you go in on this if you were going to try to eat it?
I mean, I think the serving suggestion is evident in the photograph. You're just slicing slices.
So you just.
But I think unlike a lot of sandwich bread preferences, you'd probably want the heel for a dish like this. Heel to act as sort of a bread bowl.
It would.
For what's going on
it would
inside.
help hold things together. Mm-hmm. What about this? There's probably some mayonnaise in that fish, right? Like there's probably
as
some
a binder. Yeah.
Yeah. So what if you took 2 slices of this, threw a couple of Kraft singles in between them, and grilled it off, made yourself a grilled cheese, smoked whitefish bread sandwich?
That comes pretty close to what I make anyway, the tuna boat.
Tell us about the tuna boat.
Oh, tuna boat's just a slice of great bread topped with your tuna salad recipe, and then a slice of cheese on top. You whack it in the oven under a broiler.
Whack it.
Melt it down, and there's your lunch. Have it all the time.
Sounds pretty good.
But the issue with this fish situation is that you can't pick it up. Like, how would you pick it up? Would you move it with a spatula to a plate and then go at it with a knife and fork?
You're serving this like a slice of birthday cake. I
think so. Or like an open-faced sandwich, maybe?
Yeah. There is there's a challenge in a party context, this doesn't really look like a dish you would serve in anything but a kind of like a spread at a party, right?
Sure.
And people can go get a little mini plate and a fork and load their little mini plate up with your various grody 70s delicacies. But this is going to take up the whole plate, Like you're making a huge commitment by selecting fish Wellington.
Well, let's try another one, shall we? Let's see. I think this one's going to look real Klingon.
I feel like we're watching photos of a terrible vacation you took.
Dude, if this was my vacation, I would never come back.
Oh, man. What we've got here is an artichoke that has been hollowed out and made into the bowl for what I'm guessing is an artichoke and shrimp dip. It's a creamy and lumpy substance with little flecks of green in there, and the shrimp is telegraphed by the 5 limp shrimp looped over the top of the rim of the bowl. In the way that you would a shrimp cocktail, except for there's just not enough of them. It doesn't give abundance, so I think that they are there to signal that there will be shrimp inside of the creamy filling of this cored out artichoke.
Oh, as opposed to taking the shrimp off the side like shrimp cocktail and dipping it in the sauce.
Because then only 5 people get a shrimp, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
I think you were far too kind in your description of these quote-unquote shrimp, Ben. I think this is a dish that belongs at a Halloween or sex party, because what we have here are shrimp that looks like fingers creating a sort of clam chowder goatsy in the middle. A horrifying depiction in my mind. The shrimp being the very worst part of what I'm looking at here. I think unusual serving vessels are great. I love the use of the artichoke here. I would have kept the points though. Keep it fun and dangerous. But these shrimp have got to go. I think these are clearly the frozen, already cooked shrimp that you're just thawing out and arranging like fingers around this hole. It's bad news.
I enjoy how it looks to me. It looks as though they're kind of all like they're trying to escape. Like they crawled out and then died.
They do have an energy to them in the photograph.
They don't look like they want to be there.
Well, would you?
The way they, I mean, it's just the shape of the shrimp, but it does kind of look like they've thrown themselves over the side of the bowl in an effort to get out.
Why would you? Just imagine the hubris of thinking you can make a better dip than cocktail sauce for a cold shrimp. You don't need a different sauce. That's the best sauce there is for a cold shrimp.
Yeah.
Sheer fucking hubris.
I'm trying to think about like the flavor combination of presumably an artichoke heart shrimp, sour cream
it's like
based.
it's a spinach artichoke dip type situation, and in that,
but with chunks of shrimp in it.
Yes,
a shrimp is a terrible utensil for holding a chunky dip on. What the fuck are you supposed to do at the banquet line with something like this?
No. I think Ben is right. I think the little penises that are hanging out are just garnished. They're there to tell you that it's a shrimp dip, and then what you are to do is to take off the outer leaves of the artichoke, and you dip those in the dip.
The creator of this dish did a great job in conveying that these shrimp aren't for eating. They're for decorative purposes only.
Well, to Adam Pranicka's point, the artichoke isn't really big enough to present as like, here is some dip and you can get, or here's some like shrimp salad and you can get some, right? It's like,
yeah, two people are going to go through the line here spooning out some dip on their plate, and then it's going to be gone.
And then it's gone. Or somebody has to have like a bucket of more artichoke heart shrimp salad to like reload it every 5 minutes.
Is this a recipe out of the lonely person's solo party recipe book where shut-ins just make party food for one person, them? Because that's the serving size we're looking at here.
Yeah. Speaking to the color challenges of shooting on the film of the 70s, the artichoke looks particularly heinous. It really has like a rusty garbage can tone to it.
You ever made artichokes at home? You ever steamed an artichoke for yourself? It's pretty hard to make it look pretty.
Yeah. I mean, this may be a scandal, but I don't. This is like, artichoke is one of the few vegetables that I was averse to as a child that I never really got over as an adult. Like, I'll suffer through it if that's what we're having, but it's not something I will ever make intentionally, you know?
I think I'm not a big like get a whole artichoke and then like do the like thing where you scrape the inner flesh out of the bracts and then you throw the bract away.
See, my parents love that. All my parents ever wanted to do through my entire childhood was scrape artichoke.
Artichokes
leaves.
are old people food, aren't they?
They really are. Yeah, and I just call me crazy. I don't want to eat thistles.
Yeah, very painful.
I mean, I think I really like the idea in some ways because, yes, an artichoke is a member of the thistle family, which requires you to dig out the center where there's like all of this like thorny, awful material. But once you get through that, you get to this delicious little chunk of like vegetable meat called the artichoke heart, and one presumes that after cleaning and then like steaming or boiling, it was the 70s, of course they boiled it. After boiling this artichoke heart that had been prepped, one presumes that they cut out the heart and then worked the heart, like minced the heart or pureed the heart and put it into this dip.
Doesn't it seem like an artichoke doesn't want to be eaten?
Do I care?
There are a lot of defenses to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Adam is the Ellie Sattler of this podcast. Oh. These are plants that will defend themselves violently if necessary.
Yeah. I mean, there's more work to eat an artichoke than a sea urchin. I don't think that's right.
Yeah. It's and the reward is so much less than a sea urchin too, right?
Yeah. Hey, congratulations! You've got steamed artichoke that you need to flavor with drawn butter to make palatable.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. The famous quote about drawn butter from eating snails in France is, "I would eat my hat in
garlic butter,
escargot butter."
All right, now before this next one, I'm definitely going to need to lay some more wood on the fire, and you'll see why.
Okay, what we've got here is a photograph of two lovers under an animal skin blanket. The lady lover is holding a white cat, and before them is a bountiful feast of what looks like a section of a large Bavarian pretzel, a couple of ears of corn, what may be fried chicken or broasted chicken, assorted dips, maybe a bowl of beans or nuts, what could be a cauliflower salad up front, and just a giant punch bowl, and also two gingerbread men on either side of this lowboy table. Love-making food, if I've ever seen it. And let's not forget the bottle of champagne in the back on the wicker trunk. This looks like a really fun scene.
The gingerbread men are so shiny.
Yeah, they really are.
Are they gingerbread, or are they just like bread men that are cut the way gingerbread is?
I had thought that maybe they were glazed gingerbread men.
Do you want to get into a fight with your lover by giving them what looks like it could be a gingerbread man, and then it's just a fucking regular bread man?
It's a Wonder Bread man?
Let me tell you what would happen if I tried to do that in my household. I would get divorced. Okay? A bread man in this configuration is ginger only.
Yeah. They should have some kind of DRM on the cookie cutter that prevents you from dropping it through dough that is ungingered.
This is a sex party, right? Because someone's in the room taking a picture.
Oh yeah, and that Sherpa blanket that they're under, it looks like that's the only thing that they have to cover their nudity, right?
He doesn't look like he's excited to have his picture taken. She looks extremely proud to be in this picture.
Well, one presumes it's her spread based upon the gender roles of the day.
Yeah, and he's got like a look on his face of, well, there goes any chance I had to run for public office as the shutter clicks on the camera.
Oh, wow. If he could, if only, let's hope that 70s man whose body is almost as hairy as his blanket has lived long enough to see the evaporation of all standards.
Are we looking at cauliflower here in the giant, what looks like cast iron?
No, that looks to like a chicken dish to me, right?
Well, if that's the case, then it looks like there's two possibly three chicken preparations on the table.
The whites are blown out, so it's really hard to tell what's in that wok. You could be right. That could be some kind of... It could be a chunky cheese. They loved chunky cheese back in the 70s.
Sure. Oh yeah, I do love that. And given the number of bread products on the table, that could make some sense.
Are we looking not just across time, but also across culture? Is your assumption, Goose, that these generally are photos of shit going on in the UK in the 70s?
In the Anglophone world, I've not seen non-English text on any of these. So I think these are all from Anglophone publications.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if because corn has featured prominently in two of the images that you've shown us so far, and I feel like corn on the cob is something I associate very strongly with the United States, and I don't know, I watched a game show in the UK one time, and somebody completely biffed it on question 2, not knowing that maize and corn were the same thing.
Wow.
So I've always just assumed that they don't really eat corn on the cob that much based on that one experience, but I could be totally wrong.
We need to give this a name. I feel like it's not necessarily, I don't know if I want to name the photo or if I want to name the activity that they're doing.
Horny of plenty? Can we call it?
Oh, that's good.
I'm not so sure these folks are from the United States, Ben, and I think the reason for that is going to be the Shai Halud bread on the table. Like, I'm not familiar with this configuration of loaf.
Yeah, it's like the shape of a croissant, but the look of a brioche or something.
Yeah.
And the size of like a party challah.
You could legit use it as a neck pillow against that brick wall.
Totally.
Yeah.
It is
Or
shaped like a neck pillow, yeah.
Or to like prop up a butt so that you could achieve
Better
a
angles,
Kama
yeah.
Sutra angle that would otherwise be challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that despite the 2 ears of corn in the photo, these people are hitting as though they might be Europeans of some kind, and I wonder if that makes you assume that this food tastes better. You know, like you can't really tell how it's going to taste based on this picture, but does placing this picture in Germany or something make you think that this is going to be a tastier spread or a less tasty spread than if it's in Wisconsin?
I'm seeing nice browning on the chicken. I think it would be impossible for that to be bad.
Yeah.
I'm going in on this meal.
All right, if you guys want something German, here it comes.
All right, what we have here.
Well, what I have for you today is
something that sort of reminds me of Il Timpano in maybe the worst way possible. And if you haven't seen our previous coverage of the film Big Night on the Adam Ragusa podcast,
linked in the description.
This is a dish that is sort of the show-stopping centerpiece of a big meal, and it's basically like a super lasagna that's cooked in a big drum shape. And in the case of this dish, spaghetti mit currywurst, it is it sort of looks like the inverted 4-quart saucepan version of Il Timpano, but with just dry, unadorned noodles coagulated into a mound that has its top covered in little like Vienna sausages and some kind of curry sauce, presumably. And this is actually a recipe. There's some German text telling you what kind of curry to buy and what kind of butter or margarine to use, and even a photo of the can of sausages that they employed to achieve the look of this.
This isn't grossing me out at all. As someone who eats a lot of Midwestern food, this feels to me like not distinct that much from a chili on noodles situation.
A Skyline chili. Oh my God! Could this be the precedent of Skyline chili?
Sure.
The German speaking immigrants of Cincinnati.
I like that it makes its own bowl like that. That's fun.
How deep do you think the curry sauce goes? Like, are you interpreting that as being a thin layer on top of a mass of noodles, or are the noodles hollowed out?
Okay, so I think we would have to ask ourselves how people are intended to eat this. Right? Because this seems to be from an advertisement from the little sausage company of Germany that produced these teeny little canned wieners, right? That are arranged around the border.
Are you shingling the wieners all the way down to the bottom of the bowl, or is that just for the top?
Do you pick up the wiener and then dip it into the like chili sauce situation,
Absolutely.
or do you go in with your fork and you take the noodles into the sauce to get some sauce on them?
This is calling for 300 grams of Wiener Würstchen oder Cocktailwürstchen. So that's probably a lot, right? I don't know how many grams we're looking at here.
I think you're
So many.
more familiar with what comes in grams than anyone else on this show.
Hey. Well,
My mom listens to this, Adam. Shut up.
I know.
she does? I don't think anybody did. So it says 250 grams of spaghetti to 300 grams of Wiener Würstchen. Now, the 250 grams of spaghetti would be dry weight. So spaghetti generally about doubles in weight when you boil it. So you're talking 500 grams cooked spaghetti to 300 grams Wiener Wurzen situation.
So we could be talking about a pretty significant, many more Wieners than are visible at the top of the dish.
So Wieners go all the way down.
They go all the way down, I think. And yeah, I'm picturing cutting into this like a round cake, right? Like you cut a slice and then you take it away.
That seems like a mess. This reads to me like chowder in a bread bowl. Like you're consuming the inside before you're ever thinking about deconstructing the container.
Wow.
So you might not even go into all the spaghetti. A lot of it is just there to be a container.
I bet the spaghetti part tastes great once the curry is eaten down to the bottom, because that seems to me like the right ratio of curry to spaghetti. Not an oversauced spaghetti once you finish the inside, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The question is, if you were to slice into it, would the slice hold together? Or
No
would
way.
it just spill? Right? It would just spill out.
I think the plate that it's served on tells you all you need to know. Like, you are not to slice this, because if you did, you're going to overflow the side of the plate and go onto this checkered tablecloth.
So you think, okay, so do you reckon this is a party dish like most of the others we've been seeing?
I do.
So are the party guests to sort of gather around this timpano and just kind of go in with forks together and just sort of chip away at it together?
It seems to me like a fondue almost. You're stabbing at it with really long forks. You're dipping your cocktail version in it. You're having a great time. And then once you get to the bottom, you're busting up those nudes into little cake slices, and you're taking that down at the end.
I couldn't help but notice you dipped the cocktail version, you took a bite, and then you dipped the cocktail version. You double dipped the cocktail version.
Well, this was probably being served at a key party, okay? So
Right.
they were sharing more than their dinner.
I think if you're too
Curry
biting
wasn't the
these
only
little guys,
fluid being bonded around here.
What'd you say, Adam? I missed that.
I was just saying, how many bites does it take to get through a cocktail weenie? I think I would look at you strangely if you went at one of these with 3 bites or
A
something.
1, a 2, a 3.
Yeah, I think. But yeah, if it is a key party, you do want to kind of go easy on the amount of curry and canned meat products you're loading up on. You know.
Okay, maybe something a little fresher. How about fifth and final? Let's say right here.
Okay.
All right, we have got a whale of a melon here. This is you know how when you go choose a watermelon at the store, I think most often you see the round boys, but this is a long boy watermelon. We've got the top cut out of it like that Aloha Airlines flight from the 80s that had the top of its fuselage ripped off.
Oh, Jesus.
We've got that kind of configuration sawtoothed down the top third of its body, let's just say. And inside it looks like a bunch of grapes and other cut fruit. Can't forget the googly eyes and the mouth cut out of the front where the stem would be. A little sprig of punk rock hair.
Blowhole. It's blowing out its blowhole. It's a whale.
It is a whale. Yeah, how about that? So
Yeah.
a red mist shooting out of its blowhole, which should be obvious given that it has been mutilated here and filled with tiny fruits.
Mark Wahlberg is on a berm 3 miles away with a high-powered rifle.
It's a really beautiful depiction of fun party fruit, and just the sort of thing that you never see at parties. Instead, you order them for people who have recently endured a dead relative or something. Like this is gift
Yeah.
as food, not party food in my mind.
I really like the all ball nature of the fruit salad. It's grapes, but it's also several different kinds of balled melon, and I also really like the little pom pom of saber shaped cocktail skewers that are presented on the back there, all stuck into another ball of watermelon.
That's
Little,
considerate.
pin cushion, you know?
Considerate to give people the utensil with which to enjoy this dish.
Yeah. Is the grapefruit that's next to it just garnish? That doesn't really look like it's being presented to take a sample out of.
If you want egg yolk with your balled up fruit, I think you can partake from the little sidecar there.
Yeah.
I made something very similar to this when I was like a kid because I stayed up late and watched lots of like Ronco ads, like infomercials for home kitchen products. And there was one that was like it was like a melon cutting kit. And it had like a melon baller, and it had like the little wedge knife that you would use to make that kind of sawtooth effect and all that kind of stuff. And sure. I just, that looked fun to me, and so I did it. And it got me thinking that like maybe like Ronco infomercials are what those are the historical bridge between the time of these dishes and our time today, right? Like the Ronco vegetable peelers and shit for making ornate vegetable stuff without much skill.
Right.
That speaks to the impulse, or like the supposed market need that these food concepts are ostensibly filling. That being a way for someone to impress guests to their home without having to put a lot of skill and effort into it, right? Which is this thing that kind of no one really wants to do anymore. Like, if I was going to go eat at Benjamin Harrison's house, my guess is that like he would make something really elaborate and labor intensive for me because that's how he would want to flex for me, right? Mm-hmm. But these speak to a very different cultural dynamic.
We've gotten into the get an appetizer that you heat up in the toaster oven at Trader Joe's move in my house lately. Like my wife is like just a huge fan of getting the like spread of little puff pastries with spinach dip filling or similar that, like when guests are 5 minutes away, you throw it in the toaster oven. It's hot and ready when they get there. And it's so much more convenient than laboriously scooping out little spheres of honeydew melon so that you can load up your jumbo watermelon. But if I saw this at somebody's house, I would be fucking delighted.
Hells yeah. I would dive right into that whale. I would surf atop its protruding red mist.
Did you guys ever do the thing where you cut a little hole in a melon and then like jam a liquor bottle into it so that the liquor overnight seeps into the water of the juice and then you have boozy watermelon to eat in the morning?
I've heard of this. I've never attempted it. Pranica?
Rite of passage.
Whoa.
Yeah. Imagine boozy fruit salad spheres in this whale of a watermelon.
Imagine. It might have them. We don't have the recipe reproduced.
We don't. This delights me. and to your point, an image with almost exclusively very cool colors, and still looks great.
That would be to the opposite of my point. You are undermining my point.
Well, I'm just saying, like as long as we're talking about color temperature in photographs,
okay.
Like I think that this is an issue of subject, not reproduction medium, but a very cool image and. Probably the most appetizing of the ones that you've presented for us.
All right, well, what the hell are we going to rank today? What are we considering as wholesome?
That's a great question, Goose. I think what we're going to want to discuss is whether looking at grody photographs of food from the 70s with your buddies is a wholesome activity. And I'm going to come down fully wholesome on this. I've had a great time today talking to you about this. I went to film school. A lot of the color theory and light wavelength and optics stuff you went over at the top of the program is stuff that I have encountered in my academic career, and I feel like is instinctive, but it's always nice to get a little brush up on all the specific wavelengths and whatnot. And, made me think a little bit about, the setup I have here in my studio. When I'm capturing video, I guess I have a pretty cool color temperature behind me, and I have the lighting in here set in to a daylight setting so that when the window is open, it doesn't create a mixed lighting condition and therefore make everything look weird and bad. And I think more people should try to get an understanding of that, like the incandescent color temperature versus the daylight color temperature, and no better way to learn about that type of thing than looking at weird, gross old pictures of food from the 70s with your buddies.
One of my favorite episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm is the Freak Book episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And Goose, you strike me as someone who would enjoy the Freak Book. Like, just because that's what this is, isn't it? It's a freak book full of freaky foods that you can put on your coffee table and laugh at with your buddies.
But that's the great question, don't you? And it's so hard to know, is to the extent to which the authors of these texts considered them as such, right?
I think there's no question that they are displayed with pride, all of these.
with whimsy too. I mean, I think we ought not. I think that when the tyranny of the present looks back on the past, we tend to take everyone really seriously and sincerely. And I think part of that is just that, like, humor changes a lot from generation to generation and it becomes very hard to read, right? But I think that there's definitely some whimsy here. I think a lot of the people who made these things knew what they were doing. And it almost feels to me like the last gasps of, like, kind of Elizabethan English dining culture, right? Like the sort of Henry VIII shit where of like having like a live pigeon inside a dying duck inside a dead turkey, or whatever. They didn't have turkeys, but but like just having incredibly elaborate and often kind of grotesque food or edging on grotesque food as a form of not only sustenance but also entertainment. Mm-hmm. In a time when there was less entertainment available at the dinner table than there is now. Now we can just look at our fucking phones instead of talking to each other.
You've professionalized your obsession with food in a way I haven't, but I want to know if you maybe feel the same way I do, is that maybe when you enjoy a meal, you eat with your eyes first. And I think that's what photographs like this do.
Mm.
Why not just eat with your eyes first?
Yes.
We're still taking photos of our food. That part hasn't changed.
No, it has not.
We still have a great amount of respect for people giving a shit about plating and all the little details that make something interesting before you eat it. I think this is great, and I think it's great that you're so interested in something like this. So yeah, wholesome stamp for me.
Also wholesome is this program. This is The Wholesome Show. It is a subscriber-only podcast, although you may be consuming it for free on my YouTube channel at the moment. It is available on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/wholesome_pod, patreon.com/wholesome_pod, linked in the description. $5 a month is the entry level to get you access to the show, and you get a new show every Wednesday, and there's a pretty big backlog of shows in there already for you to binge, should you choose to. And one of the cool things that we do is if you give more, namely a lot, $100 a month or more, we will name you, if you want, at the end of every single episode to thank you.
Yeah, so we want to thank Carter for being our wholesomest member to date. We also want to thank Windy Pretty, our producer and editor, So for Adam Ragusia and Adam Pranica, I've been Ben Harrison. If this was a wholesome conversation to you, consider going out and talking to your friends about something you really like.